Latif was the poorest beggar in the village. Every night, he slept on the porch of a different house in front of the central square of the village. Every day, he lay under a different tree with his hand extended and a lost look in his thoughts. Every afternoon, he fed on alms or the crumbs offered by some charitable person. Despite his appearance and the way he spent his days, Latif was considered by all as the wisest man in the village, perhaps not so much for his intelligence but for everything he had experienced. One sunny morning, the king himself appeared in the square surrounded by guards. He walked among the fruit and trinket stalls without seeking anything in particular, laughing at the merchants and buyers. He almost tripped over Latif, who was dozing in the shade of a tree. Someone told him that he was in the presence of one of his poorest subjects, but also one of the most respected men for his wisdom. The amused king approached the beggar and said, "If you answer a question for me, I give you the golden coin." Latif looked at him almost with disdain and replied, "You can keep your coin, why would I want it? What is your question?" The king felt challenged by the response and instead of asking a banal question, he vented with a question that had been troubling him for days and that he couldn't solve, a problem of goods and resources that his analysts had failed to solve. Latif's answer was fair and creative, and the king was surprised. He left his coin at the beggar's feet and continued on his way through the market, pondering what had happened. The next day, the king returned to the market. He no longer strolled among the merchants but went straight to where Latif was resting, once again under an olive tree. The king asked another question, and once again, Latif answered quickly and wisely. The sovereign was once again surprised by such lucidity. With humility, the king took off his sandals, sat on the ground in front of Latif, and said, "Latif, I need you," he said. "I am overwhelmed by the decisions I must make as a king. I don't want to harm my people or be a bad ruler. I ask that you come to the palace and be my advisor. I promise you will lack nothing, that you will be respected, and that you may leave." Latif, after thinking for a few minutes, accepted the king's proposal, whether out of compassion, service, or surprise. That very afternoon, Latif arrived at the palace. Upon his arrival, he was given a spacious room just a few steps away from the king's quarters. In his room, there was a large bathtub filled with warm water awaiting him. His consultations with the king became habitual in the following weeks. Every morning and afternoon, the monarch would summon his new advisor to seek guidance on matters of the kingdom, his own life, or his spiritual doubts. Latif always responded with clarity and precision. The newcomer became the king's favorite interlocutor. And after 3 months of his stay, there was no measure, decision, or sentence that the monarch did not consult with his valuable advisor. Obviously, this aroused jealousy among all the courtiers who saw the beggar-turned-advisor as a threat to their own influence, and a detriment to their material interests. One day, all the other advisors requested an audience with the king. Many of them were serious and solemn, saying, "Your friend Latif, as you call him, is conspiring." "It can't be," said the king. "You can confirm it with your own eyes," they all said. Every afternoon around 5 o'clock, Latif sneaks out of the palace and goes to the Alasal, where he secretly meets someone. We asked him where he was going on some of those afternoons, and he evasively replied. This attitude alerted us to his conspiracy. The king felt disappointed and hurt. He needed to confirm those versions. That afternoon at 5 o'clock, he waited hidden in a bend of the staircase. From there, he saw how Latif indeed arrived at the door, looked around, and with the key hanging from his neck, he opened the wooden door and stealthily slipped inside the room. "Did you see?" the courtiers exclaimed. "Did you see?" Followed by his personal guards, the monarch knocked on the door, asking, "Who is it?" said Latif from inside. "It's me, the king," said the sovereign. "Open the door." Latif opened the door, and there was no one there except Latif himself. There was no secret door, no window, no furniture that could hide someone. There was only a worn wooden plate in a corner, a walking stick, and in the center of the room, a tattered tunic hanging on a hook from the ceiling. "Are you conspiring against me?" the king asked. "By no means, why would I do that? But you come here every afternoon in secret. What are you looking for if you don't meet anyone? Why do you come to this hidden place?" Latif smiled and approached the tattered tunic hanging from the ceiling. He caressed it and said to the king, "Just 6 months ago, when I arrived, all I had was this tunic, this plate, and this walking stick," said Latif. "Now I feel so comfortable with the clothes I wear, so comfortable with the bed I sleep in, so flattered by the respect given to me, and so fascinated by the power that my place beside you grants me that I come here every day, to make sure I don't forget who I am and where I come from."